Thank you for staying with us. From that living wage conversation, let's talk about how the youth themselves can have a living wage. The focus on youth and innovation, from creating anti-theft programs through gaming to soil-less farming. You heard that before? Yes. Yes. Soil-less farming.
So you farm where?
On the walls of your house. Google it. Come on.
Okay.
You ain't so old.
Yeah, I saw some funny gardens in Singapore.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know. So they call it hydroponics. So Nigerian youths are daily enhancing the quality of life and entrepreneurship that has a huge impact across Africa and the globe. The National Population Commission says about 64% of Nigeria's population is below the age of 25. This presents an opportunity for the country, not a burden, to harness the energy and creativity of its youth towards building a digital and innovative future. Let's have some conversation around this with Titi Adewusi, who is co-founder Niger Kids. He joins us along with Dr. Henrietta Onwuebuzie, Associate Professor Entrepreneurship of Lagos Business School, who is also Director, Business Innovation Accelerator of the Lagos Business School, as well as Mayowa Tijani, who is a journalist. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
So let me begin with you, Dr. Onwuebuzie. Are we focused right when we talk about youth innovation in Nigeria, or we are just papering over cracks?
So my take would be that we could focus a lot more, but the good news is that the youth are not waiting for us. Irrespective of government policies supporting them or not, they're going ahead and they're doing their thing. There's a parallel economy of young people making a lot of money from offering very useful solutions that are relevant to the public. And so people are willing to pay and they're making their money. Now, obviously, if we had government policy supporting them, we could make a lot more money and transform society a lot faster. In other words, accelerate the transformation of the country and the economy if we paid attention and supported them so that they are able to scale faster. And then we're also able to even give them the management training that's required to help them not just start, but remain sustainable and scale. You know, there's so many great ideas. I mean, in the last few months, weeks with the fuel hike prices, I've seen at least 3 different innovations by the youth to make, to help people survive. So I've seen somebody attach gas cylinders to the Kakemarua, the tricycles. I've seen another one change them to be electric powered. And I've seen a third one using urine power generator. I mean, not that they're trying to, they have made urine power generators. So that's turning waste to wealth and making it easier because, I mean, the inflation is rising. Cost of living is rising and wages are not rising. Minimum wage is still 30,000, which is impossible to live on, okay? No matter where you live. So definitely there's a lot going on, which if supported with scaling and training, we could actually achieve national economic, in fact, socio-economic transformation.
Ms. Adewusi, Dr. Onwuebuzie has spoken about what young people are doing, urine-powered generator, gas-powered Kekemarua and all that. But what kind of support do they have so that they can take these things to greater heights, as in multiply them and make them enterprises that can give them incomes on which they can live?
Thank you very much for that question. There is support. Maybe the support is not as much as people want, but there is support, buckets of support, and sometimes people are also not aware of the supports that are available. So I'll give some examples. So we have a lot of innovation hubs. We have a lot of grants and funding at this innovation hub for different things. Some of them are for circular economy, some of them are in health, some of them are in education. we have, even in states, so for instance, in Lagos State, for instance, we have large that's given to people to support a number of these innovations. If you go to the tech area, you have NITDA, that does a lot of these things. But sometimes a lot of these things are not known across board. And there are also various foundations that are supporting innovation. Like I said, some of them are in healthcare. Some of them are also in mobility, even before. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Go
okay. Even in mobility and all that, there are a lot of support in terms of mobility, people converting. I know companies to mini refrigerated keke mawa, so it's really a bicycle, keke kind of thing. To help people move their products from the market to things. And I think when they are difficult, allows these things for us to look inward. It's not at the level it should be, but there are buckets of it, and we hope that more organizations will look at it. There are a lot of even finance doing hackathons, doing challenges where they're giving money and funds. But I think we need to pull all this together. I think we also need to have a place where people can go and find out about all. We still need the biggest support, which is really in terms of government. And the support government can give starts with policies, policies that ensures that these things can scale. So let me give an example. So if you look at things in education, we have a lot of innovation in education, but to be honest, if you don't have access to the devices and if you don't have access to the internet, then these innovations don't get around to you. So we talk about a lot of innovation in EdTech, but the average student, which most of them are in public schools, don't have access to technology. They're all learning without technology. So we need those kind of policies in government that ensures that, ICT is compulsory. Every school has, laptops. Every school has this. Policies that make, getting those things also easier. Internet access for things that are promoting education, if they need to be 0 rated so people can access these things easier. It will begin to, kind of reduce the space, the gap that is there. So we do need a lot of government policies. We do need even the kind of, banks, the kind of loans that they can give. Most of this, we can't afford to take bank loans. So if government has some of these policies that would allow these organizations to do, even companies to say, okay, apart from using big companies, percentage of your business must be done with SMEs, especially SMEs that are promoting mobility, SMEs that are promoting, alternative energy sources, so that also helps on the customer and demand side for these businesses. And those are the kind of things that can help, innovation and also help the youth get work as well. Thank you.
Mr. Tijani, it's important for us to emphasize that youths are thriving in various industries, but we must zero in on what they're doing in the area of tech. Recall that startups such as Flutterwave and Paystack have been homegrown. They have been Nigerian. So let me take you back from there. It therefore becomes important that we pay attention to the education of these children, science and technology. How much do you think that we are investing in those subjects in schools these days so that we can churn out more youths who are going to do more magic for us in the area of tech?
Thank you very much. So the way it is in Nigeria today, we don't have as much investment as we should in those areas. Of course, we already are making some progress. There's a lot of focus on the fact that Nigerian youth need to get an education that sort of aligns with the needs of the 21st century. But I think that a lot more still needs to be done. We still need a lot more work to do around changing the curricula within our university, secondary school systems. We still need to get people familiar with tech as early as possible. in their lives as we have competition from around the world. But one thing that is on the upside is that a lot of Nigerian youths are learning all of these things by themselves outside the four walls of the school. So I know tons and tons of people who would study an extremely different. So somebody who study Christian religious studies, and he would train himself in software development. Before you know what's happening, he's selling talent, he's selling his skills to other parts of the world, making a lot of difference and making a lot of money. A lot of those differences, a lot of those outliers basically are making a difference across the spectrum of the nation. But it would make a lot of sense, it would make a lot of difference if we could scale that kind of thinking, that kind of thoughts to be able to reach a whole lot more people. So imagine that as early as junior secondary school 3, that students are being taught how to code, how to understand some of the computer languages that are important for the world today. So by the time they are getting out of school, SS3, they're already clear. If a child decides that he wants to go and study Christian religious studies or geography or whatever course they decide at SS3 level, we know that they are making those decisions based on their interests, not based on the availability of options. So I think that the way we should be thinking about our education is such that there needs to be a lot more skill to the kind of innovation that young people are bringing to education. We cannot, you know how they say that we cannot entrepreneur ourselves out of quote unquote bad government. It's the same way we cannot entrepreneur ourselves out of just out of this kind of educational challenges that we have in not just the country but generally in Africa. Like we have the people, as we have said earlier, the numbers are there. Over the next 20 years, we would have like 123 million people who would be within that space. And so we need to make sure that we bring our education to the level where we are not just teaching the things that were relevant in the past, but things that will be relevant for the future.
Let me ask you, Dr. Onweguzie, in the light of these things, issues that we're raising, I want to ask you about the systems that should power these initiatives. You said something about scaling, about ensuring that policies of government, ministries, departments, and agencies of government are geared, focused, and channeled towards scaling up this innovative population that we have on our hands. How do you think that can be done? In the light of this fact that I'm sure you're aware of, many people in the civil service or public service are largely unwelcoming of innovation. This is a fact that I'm pretty sure you are aware of. Many of them are not very open to digitalization or digitization for the simple reason that some of them who do not have the digital skills might be out of jobs. But it is something that is waiting to happen because in another 20 years from now, the people who are standing in the way of digitization in the ministries, departments, and agencies may not be there any longer. So because the much younger people would have taken their seats, the 20-year-old is 40, the 30-year-old is 50, the 15-year-old is 35, and they are all bosses and level 12, 13, 14, and all of that in these ministries, departments, and agencies. So in terms of soft infrastructure that needs to facilitate digitization that can help scale at the rate at which I suspect that you are advocating, what needs to be done urgently, particularly from the state governments?
All right. So I personally believe in working with my reality, which is not cursing the darkness and rather lighting a candle. I mean, what do I mean? We know the reality. It's just been recently announced that subsidy is going to be taken out of education. Now, in that context, you don't have expecting the same people who are out removing what was already significantly insufficient to be the ones who will bring about change. Okay? Many times we think that change will come from the office of the president or the office of the government. Many times all over the world, historically, we see that it is triggered by the office of the citizen, and government is then compelled into accountability. So what I would say is this: there's a lot the private sector can do. Okay, we know the situation. Government has not left it ambiguous. They're taking away subsidy, not just from oil, from education. Before you know what is happening, it may even happen to the health sector. Okay, and we're seeing, you just showed the advert of Duchess Hospital. That's a private sector triggered solution. You'll see, there's Evercare on the island. Obviously, where the problem with those is that it's only for the high-end people. Okay, in India, they have ways of making the same facilities, services get to the low-end people in terms of scheduling. Now, coming back to education, the truth is, just like Titi Adewusi mentioned, okay, there are grants. Okay, fortunately, there's a huge global impact investing market out there. What is impact investing? These investors are people. What are impact investors? These are people who are looking out to make an impact in different sectors beyond making returns. Okay, one of the things I always tell people is that if you look at the richest people in the world, whether it's Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk, these people didn't set out to make money. They set out to make a difference. And in making a difference that was a solution to everybody, people were willing to pay. And because everybody all over the world was willing to pay, they became very wealthy. One of the richest men in China is the guy who made education available to the poorest of the poor. Okay, apparently India is a place where that has the cheapest internet data. Okay, and what this guy did was make sure that the entire school curriculum was available on cheap, affordable mobile phones, so that no matter how remote, and then I think they worked on data somewhere on USSD. I know some young people who are doing this. All they need is support. Even if each phone is 100 naira, okay. If people are, even if they get the phones free of charge, if people are paying 100 or 200 naira daily to use that to educate their children, that will be collecting hundreds of millions daily, because 80% of Nigeria's population live below the poverty line. Okay, so we need people in the private sector thinking like this. And I always tell people, can we just, for some time, not think about what can come from government, because it just paralyzes us as to what we can do for ourselves, and begin to see how we can get things done. Okay? One person can make a lot of difference.
Dr. My apologies. The reason I brought that up was because you already said earlier, the first comment you made was that, look, the young people are not waiting for government.
Yes.
They are going on either way. I've had to start business from 0 naira myself, and a number of people would say the same thing. So,
exactly.
But the question that I'm asking is about the scaling that you talked about. You said, look, and then you have also, buttressed that by saying most times initiatives are triggered from the office of the citizen, and the government is forced to line up. But you also said now that in some cases, it is the people who should be facilitating it that are causing the roadblocks due to one issue or the other, maybe bureaucracy, whatever it is. That's really the question that I'm asking, because there are quite a number of young people in those ministries, departments, and agencies themselves who have to answer to many, bosses who have analog mentality, who are not open to or welcoming of digitization. But whether we like it or not, digitization is the way to go. But
Absolutely.
These things can be speeded up from the office of the top guy, who can ordinarily just issue a statement or what the executive order or whatever it is, just to answer the question of scaling up that you spoke about the other time. That's the question I'm asking.
Yes, so you're absolutely right. That's the ideal that we all want and we all wish was the case. But my point, however, is let's look at, obviously you've said it all. That's the way things should be. But the reality is they're not like that. So are we going to stop? Or are we going to just have a pity party? Or are we going to still find a way around it? So while I fully agree with what you have said, all I'm saying is let's have that resilience and determination to find our way around it. The truth about life is that whether you're doing good or bad, you will always find opposition. And so my take is, let's not stop doing what we're doing. The individuals what we can do, for example, when we see young people who are doing these great things, okay, and we have connections to investors who are not just profit driven but also impact driven, okay, we can make these introductions. I'll give you an example. So I teach entrepreneurship at the Lagos Business School. And I have a class of entrepreneurs. I have all kinds of levels of entrepreneurs, from the ones who are making billions to the ones who are making hundreds of millions to the ones who are making a few millions. And we make them work with industry leaders in their sectors, okay? And we just run a program now with the BOI where after classroom training, we put them into apprenticeship with bigger people in their industry. Now, one of them who is in the energy sector has gone from just buying solar panels that are imported into the country and installing them to now manufacturing, trying to establish a manufacturing plant in Nigeria to make the solar panels in Nigeria. How did that happen? Okay, came to LBS, okay, apart from sending him for apprenticeship with a bigger company in the country, he was able to get someone who facilitated his going to India to a company that has been making solar panels for 13 years. Now, they were so happy with him, they're ready to come back to Nigeria with him to train Nigerians to make solar panels and invest in 50% of the equipment costs. I think either Ogun State or Ekiti State government is also giving him land to site the plant. So these are the kinds of ways we can facilitate scaling of these young people who are doing amazing things. I absolutely love meeting them. In fact, once I finish from this interview, I'm going to the NSIA Innovation Program. What am I going to do there? Scout for great ideas, and from my network, see how I can make connections to help them scale. So in my own capacity, I do what I can to help the ones I meet. And I think that if all of us are doing this, one day it will all add up, and that transformation will happen irrespective of the person who is holding down, these things in one ministry or the other.
Okay.
It's going to happen. Okay. There's no stopping.
Okay. Mrs. Adeusi, let's look at the area of Agric, one of Nigeria's most important sectors. What kind of initiatives or innovations are we seeing from young people in that sector? Because, like it or not, we've got to learn to feed ourselves.
Yeah, we're seeing quite a number, and it's actually it's exciting. You wouldn't have expected it. So let me just give some examples of what we're seeing. So we're seeing the ones that are helping farmers. So we are seeing more and more, Agritech companies that help farmers to go on a platform where they would get immediate buyers and uptake for their products. Okay. So that's also reducing the loss. So they put a group of farmers together and say, we can have people that would uptake your items. So that is happening. And as that happens, they now start finding that they need to help do a bit more training for the farmers to help their products to be standardized, to help them with preservation and things like that. So if that's happened, there's a major as well. So once you're helping farmers with the uptake, that's also helping. There's another platform, also an EdTech one. There's also giving them access to loans. So what they demand side, ensure they have the demand, and then also go that they need in terms of their operation expenses. There are also platforms that are now doing crowdfunding loans for some of this Agritech. There are also ones helping them with distribution. I gave you the example of people that bicycle type keke mawas they're also refrigerated, so that the distribution is also being happened. So that's exciting. There are people that are also doing things in terms of data, being able to do more soil analysis for them using satellite, and that's where AI also comes in terms of agriculture, in terms of taking a lot of this data and being able to analyze it faster, in terms of telling you what will be the weather, what will also be your yield, and things like that. But like everything, we need the skill. We need more and more people going to the grassroots to tell a lot of these farmers, that like it's not just only in the public sector. Everybody that is not knowledgeable is initially wary of technology, but the moment they now see one cycle of what it can do for them, then everybody gets excited. In the Agritech space, and we're excited to see that. It's also helping with people in exportation. I'm proudly excited in Nigeria now when we see a lot of our things, our shops abroad. So that also is helping with FX and things like that. Now, all this is being enabled by tech. So people have been able to export a lot of things outside of the country because they are platforms. So they themselves are not doing the exportation, but because they're providing their product into these agri-tech platforms, people all over the world can buy their products. Okay. And then luckily with logistics now being easier, it's easy to just, work with a logistic company and then also a lot is happening and we're excited. I think it's just really to scale this more. Thank you. I hope you all heard me.
I'm also hoping that the young people are as excited as well. The challenge, for me, perhaps, and let me take this to Mr. Tijani, the challenge for me is, first of all, availability of information, authentic information, reliable and usable information that doesn't put the young man or young woman through too many layers of approvals or, and disapprovals. So, Mr. Tijani, in terms of communicating the ideals and the opportunities inherent therein to the young people, for me, that's a challenge because a good number of people, of course, has been fairly, even though subtly underscored here, government trust in anything government or government-related is at an all-time low. In fact, the trust account between government and the people is in the red, But at the same time, young people are not waiting. Yet, the vulnerabilities are there, The challenges of not just getting the information, but using the information in a way that is profitable sustainably for the young man or young woman. It's a challenge because a good number of them may fall into wrong hands, get into scams and all those things, while they can do the same business authentically, fairly, truthfully, and still get fairness. Communicating these ideals to young people, what are the challenges you see and how do we cross them?
Okay, so generally, of course, all through time, it's clear that information is power. And of course, when young people have the right information, they make the right decisions for their lives and, of course, for the nation at large. When it comes to communication, there's quite a lot that is happening at once right now. But I'll probably start with what I may consider the biggest, which is misinformation. Misinformation, disinformation, all forms of information disorder sorts of robs young people of the opportunity to get the best out of numerous situations. And this is one of the things that personally I'm grateful for and I'm also scared about at the same time. And this is artificial intelligence. Now, to speak to young people, one of the things that we need to do is to be able to speak in their language, speak to them in the things, on the platforms they understand, in the languages they understand, with the things that they really care about. Now, the Youth Innovation Forum, there was a Youth Innovation Forum just this week in Lagos, and there were quite a number of young people at that event. Now, beyond the communication, beyond what was said, beyond what was shared within that room, we have seen other young people distill that information down to their peers, down to people within their network. So young people speaking to young people makes a lot of sense, and we've seen a lot of that happen. But we've also seen a lot of, in the bid to try to make the information sweeter or better or easier to communicate, then some misinformation gets to creep into the space. And that in itself becomes a problem with and for young people. So I believe that the way we are thinking about it, the kind of investments that we are seeing moving into communication of ideas, communication of ideals, highlighting young people who are making enormous progress within the system sort of inspires other younger people to get into the space. So as we would see generally across the world, there's a lot more focus on young people. And of course, Africa, especially Nigeria, we are the continent where the young people are going to come from.
Well, Mr. Tijani, just a quick one. You pricked something. Let me just see what you can make of it within the next 30 seconds before we wrap up the program, and that is AI. Just recently, you may also be aware, some people wrote all of their assignments using ChatGPT, and guess what? The lecturer isn't any less smarter. So that raises the question of copyright, of the legal framework that the young people also need to be well informed about, still speaking about communication.
Right. So I'll take a little from what Dr. Onyewuzi said earlier about the private sector driving some of these things. Fortunately for us now, the Gates Foundation are running a project to work on some artificial intelligence program to deal with this kind of challenges. And one of the things that we are seeing, or one of the things that Bill Gates during his trip this particular week said, was that we have to make sure that the defense is always ahead of the attack. So the misinformation will come, but we have to start building systems and tools to make that to make us faster than what the problem would be.
So we anticipate the challenge. We anticipate the challenge. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we anticipate the challenge and we deal with it. $7 billion is being committed across Africa to deal with some of these challenges by the foundation. And I believe that a lot of young Nigerians have applied to some of those in agriculture, health, artificial intelligence, all of that, to deal with the challenges that we are going to have as we go into the future.
Okay. Well, you've raised a number of issues. I think the conclusion one can draw from this conversation with you all is that government who is supposed to be leading the pack has to now play catch up, unfortunately. But then in order for them to not be too far behind, they better catch up quickly. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us this morning. Mayowa Tijani, who is a journalist, Dr. Henrietta Onwebuzie, Associate Professor, Entrepreneurship, as well as Director of Business Innovation Accelerator of the Lagos Business School. We've also had Ms. Titi Adeusi, who is co-founder, Niger Kids. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, you all. And please keep the focus on the young people because we need them more than they need us. So we're back right after this conversation to talk more about the next item on the agenda. Just stay with us.